1, 2, 3, 4.
News,
Culture, astronomy,
physics,
humanities,
space,
science, travel,
Boom! Knowledge! Boom! Knowledge!
History.
humor,
technology,
Games.
business.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are on the cool, rocky, watery planet that all the other planets are probably, well, just a little bit mildly jealous of. Except for Jupiter and Saturn, because those guys have lots of little toadies circling them all the time, telling them just how great they are. And welcome to Boom Knowledge, a podcast with a purpose. Educate, entertain, and explore. It's fascinating facts, titillating trivia, and noteworthy knowledge across a vast spectrum of topics. I'm your host, Mike Vass, and it is fantastic to have you here. And if you're new to the show, an extra warm welcome to you. And if you're a veteran who keeps coming back, shh, you're my favorite today. Don't tell the others. I have got a hell of a program for you guys. I know I say I'm excited a lot, and well, that's because I am. I'm an excitable kind of guy. But this show right here, it's no fooling around, a great one. We're going to talk with a couple of serious experts about creativity, performance, circus arts, and dramaturgy. And if you're wondering what the heck dramaturgy even is, well, I didn't know either. But I had a lot of fun finding out, and I think you will as well. Two great guests. The first, Michael Chemers, is Associate Professor of Dramatic Literature at UC Santa Cruz. He was the founding director of the Bachelor in Fine Arts Dramaturgy program at Carnegie Mellon, and he's an author as well. His most recent book is entitled Ghostlight, an introductory handbook for dramaturgy. I'll be joined as well by David Krellin, also known as Armitage Shanks, co-founder and ringmaster of the gone but never forgotten, I was definitely a fan, musical circus group Circus Contraption. David's a veteran performer and creative artist as well, and has a show running in Seattle through this coming weekend, February 25th, called Storyville Rising. Both Mike and David are a hoot. Now, I normally do some flowery prose regarding the closing of my introduction, which I bathe in symbolism and clever turn of phrase, and, well, I just don't want to waste any more time. These guys are just too rad. So, no more ado, hit the rear view ado, there's dramaturgy afoot.
The circus while you can. We've got a grand disaster plan.
All right, well, I am here with Professor Michael Chemers and David Krellin, and thank you guys for being on the show. It is greatly appreciated.
Great to be
I have
here.
made them descend into the bowels of Monster Manor, and we got lots of fun things to talk about today. We're going to start with, and we'll tease out your background as we talk about the things, but I want to talk about dramaturgy and what it is.
Dramaturgy.
Speaking of the bowels of Monster Manor.
No kidding. Well, dramaturgy, it's actually a very hard question to answer. Usually I ask people to ask me, what is a dramaturg? So go ahead and I'll give you my current answer to that question.
Hey, Mike, what's a dramaturg?
What do you need? Okay, now, so theater people are going to be laughing their asses off at that joke, but you aren't. So, okay, I'll try that again. A dramaturg is a member
Sorry to
of...
be a crappy audience.
No, it's okay. Well, can we edit that out? Can we fix that in post?
Oh, we will.
Oh, totally, right.
I promise I will do that.
Yeah, okay. All right, so a dramaturg is a member of an artistic team, a theatrical team, who is an expert on the transformation of text into performance. Now, actually, if you use that definition, every member of the artistic team is an expert on the transformation of text into performance. We take textual plays and we turn them into performance. Or in the case of devised theater, we create the script as we enter into the rehearsal process. Or in the case of immersive theater, such as right now, I don't know if you know this, Mike, but there happens to be going on here in Seattle. Seattle Immersive Theater is putting on a show called Storyville Rising, which was written and directed by, I believe it was by David Krellin.
We should talk to that guy.
We should have him on the show. And in a case like that, you are actually, instead of a script, you're actually looking for outlines, structures to action that you can then engage with the audience, right?
Okay, so it's an improvisational space in that sense? Or?
At the Seattle Immersive Theater, it's
Yeah.
partially improvisational because you don't know what the audience is going to do at a given moment, but it's also partially scripted. So, that can be that kind of situation can be very unusual, very untraditional, and a dramaturg in that situation can help the artistic team visualize an overall structure for the piece and what they want the audience to be feeling at the end of it. So the dramaturg ultimately is the guy who has taken on part of the responsibility for helping the artistic team visualize this transformation from an idea into an actual performance.
Got it. So it helps with driving the vision and making it a reality.
That's right. And in a boots on the ground sense, what that really means is that the dramaturg is an expert in research on theater, and an expert in the theory of theater and how performance works. And so the dramaturg is concentrating on that, while the lighting designer is concentrating on light, and the sound designer is concentrating on sound, and so on.
Got it. So is that the role that you played for the aforementioned show that we just talked about?
It is. I was very honored to be part of this production, even in a small way. But I was approached by David Krellin several months ago, and he was talking about this idea for a show that he had, and would I give it a look? And so I did, and I was very happy to be part of that process. And in this case, my function as dramaturg was really merely to sort of hold up a mirror for David and ask some questions about the show, about what he wanted the audience to achieve. And I was very happy to be a part of that process. I don't know that I had a huge impact.
He did great. Michael and I have known each other for 20 years from back in the days of Circus Contraption, which we may talk about later.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Circus Contraption in a little bit.
But so I've always valued his opinion and his intellect, and having the opportunity for him to look. I kind of look at it in some ways like a dramaturg can function in some ways as a theatrical cartographer, helping you map the landscape.
Well, I like that.
That then, the other folks that are involved in that then take that landscape and then fill in all the details.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about the show. It just opened this weekend, correct?
No, it actually opened the first weekend in February, so we're in week 3 right now.
Oh, fantastic. And how's it going so far?
It's going wonderfully. It's a wonderful cast and crew. Audiences have been robust and really getting what's going on, and understanding the content and why this content is important in a present day situation.
So let's talk about that. What's the background of the show?
So Storyville Rising is evocation and recreation of a district in New Orleans from 1897 to 1917. Prostitution and vice was scattered all throughout the city, and as a social experiment, they created a 16-block radius in which prostitution and licentious behavior would not be prosecuted. So the idea being that rather than it being all over the place, let's put it right here in this one area.
A red light district of sorts.
Essentially, yes.
Right.
It was called that at various times, the Tenderloin. The district is what it was known. Alderman Sidney Story proposed the ordinance, and then the area became nicknamed Storyville, which he always hated. Mm-hmm. But it was also 20...
Wow, that's got layers to it. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. 28 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, and within 6 months of Plessy versus Ferguson. So this time was also not only a fecund time for how society deals with sex and sexual mores, our loftier natures and our more basic instincts, but as well as an admixture of how race, power, privilege all folds into that, as well as gender. So it's a rich time to look at that historical legacy and see how much and how many of those things are still playing themselves out today.
Right. Super topical, as you touched upon.
One of the things that a dramaturg does is asks one question over and over and over again, and this question is, why this play now? So the dramaturg, from the beginning of the process to the end, is always asking the artistic team, why this play now? Specifically, why this play and not some other play? Why a play and not some other form of art or political action? And why now? And what we discover is that when we have our hands on something really vibrant like Storyville Rising, the further we get along into the rehearsal process, the more relevant the work becomes. And in this particular process, Dave went and did a lot of research and found many historical documents that comprised, we call it found text, right? Comprised the basis of the script. And the actors now in the immersive setting are tweaking that just a little bit to make it resonant with some of the things that we're hearing from our government and
I'm fascinated. That's awesome.
To wit, the show is comprised of original text as well as historical transcripts, which I use then as a basis to write in and bring those characters to life, adding contemporary, some contemporary language that, again, politically topical things that would draw that continuity between some of the things going on in Storyville and what's going on now.
So can I ask you a little bit about, because this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart because I'm neck deep in it every single week. What was your research process like? What was the process that you followed to find the texts that you needed
and
to
so
bring them in?
Initially, Storyville Rising was a cabaret show in New Orleans that we put on for 3 years, and it had no text, save one wonderful spoken word piece by a poet in New Orleans, but it was primarily an aesthetic that we hung a variety show on. But as I traveled down to New Orleans, and I travel around the world quite a bit as a performer and educator, etc., I found myself, once we brought that show with the aesthetic up, fascinated with the time, fascinated, and as I dug a little bit deeper in just kind of getting a sense of the environment, I started finding this wealth of information and just kind of peeling the layers of the onion of what was going on. So it went from kind of initial aesthetic, oh, there's this thing called Storyville, to, oh, let me find out more about that. And then underneath that level was, wow, here's a book. The first book I read was Empire of Sin by Gary Christ, which is a great overview of the time. And then that led me to other things, Al Rose's Storyville, which has a number of the historical transcripts and a great compendium of documents, photographs, etc., that went on in the era. And then from there, kind of the next wave was getting into more contemporary takes. Emily Landau's Spectacular Wickedness, which is kind of a feminist perspective from what was going on in Storyville vis-a-vis gender, etc., patriarchy. So it just started expanding, and I started finding, these volumes of things to research to bring to the fore when I was writing the show.
That's great. I want to talk a little bit about both your backgrounds because I've had some interesting people on the show already, and you guys are very much amongst the interesting. Now, Michael and I have a background that goes into some friendship, and nerd alert, we also play D&D together.
Oh, you outed me.
I can't help it.
Oh, my God.
And actually, I'm curious, have you applied, before we get into your backgrounds, have you applied any of your dramaturgical approach to when you run Dungeons and Dragons campaigns?
Actually, it's if I'm going to be totally honest with you, Mike, it's the exact opposite. I apply what I learned playing Dungeons and Dragons to my work as a theater artist, as a dramaturgy advocate and specialist, at my work as a researcher and my work as a teacher. Is all totally informed by my Dungeons and Dragons background. I am just a
I love
D&D
that so
geek
much.
who figured out how to get paid.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that great when we can geek out as kids and it makes being an adult easier?
Yeah.
So let's talk
know,
a
you
little
didn't know this about me.
Dungeons and Dramaturgy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're
exactly.
on D&D, ND.
Your D's all around. D's all the way down. Yeah, that was an awkward statement. I'm sad I made it.
I liked it though. I'm glad you made it.
Let's talk about your professional background.
Sure.
You teach at UC Santa Cruz, correct?
I do, yes. I have a long Seattle history. I moved here in the year 1997 after getting my MFA in playwriting from Indiana University, and I decided I wanted to come to Seattle and break into the playwriting industry. Little did I know that there wasn't one. There was one thing that
Dun, dun, dun.
we don't talk about very much when we're educating people, is the job market, so I was casting around. I was working in Seattle. I was working at Act Theater, and I was casting around for
I know
a while.
it well.
Yeah, great theater. And I was casting around for something to do with the next phase of my life while I was trying to get some plays done. And I got it into my head that I would like to be a professor. So I applied to and was accepted at the University of Washington's PhD program in theater history. So later that year, I took a flyer from a friend and I stumbled into a sort of a underground circus community, a show at Sandpoint. What was that space called? It's like a warehouse at Sandpoint.
Are you talking about the hangars that are
Yeah,
out there?
the hangars.
Yeah.
And I saw a piece of theater, Circus Contraption. I believe it was the Gallimofrey. And I fell madly in love, and I was astonished at what was going on stage. It was a type of theatrical dynamism and performance art that I didn't think was possible. And I fell madly head over heels in love with this troupe, and I wanted to quit everything and run away with them and become part of
Join
the
the circus contraption.
Yes, but I did not because I had been injured recently, and so I felt like my trapeze days were probably behind me.
Right.
And
this is getting hit with a baseball bat.
I got hit with a baseball bat, yeah. And
Because you're a badass.
yeah, maybe a little. And then
Particularly harsh critic.
it was it was a tough crowd. But then I was also in my first year of a PhD program, and my wife was really looking forward to eventually us having a dental plan and a house with a back door and that kind of thing.
Those are reasonable requests
There you go. And so
from a betrothed.
yeah. And so I was unable to run away and join the circus at the time. So I was very happy when circumstances led me to get involved with Circus Contraption in a more intimate way over the next couple of years. And I worked as a consultant and dramaturg a little bit. And then I did some research on their history. They did a show out in New York called the Grand American Traveling Dime Museum, which I saw several times and wrote some work on it. And then that's kind of how I got involved with the circus.
So let's talk a little bit more about Circus Contraption, which I, as a Seattle, not native, but I've been here for 16 years, I have seen probably half a dozen times. And actually, I had some interest in mixed music and sort of circusy theatrical from being in San Francisco and seeing bands like Idiot Flesh, and I just loved that kind of style. And it was like a really easy fit when I saw Circus Contraption. Let's talk a little bit about what Circus Contraption was about, maybe.
Yeah, sure. What's interesting, it's funny you mentioned Idiot Flesh, because I've known them for years as well. And my old band before Circus Contraption used to gig with Idiot Flesh.
Yeah.
Phineas Gage.
Phineas Gage, yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, I remember Phineas Gage as well.
So Circus Contraption, yeah. I'm the co-founder of Circus Contraption and functioned as the ringmaster and one of the lead singers for the band, which also played out aside from the Circus Contraption. Mm-hmm. We got together in 1998. That's when we consider our origin story at the Seattle Fringe Festival. And we made circus performance art live music for 12 years, traveling around the United States and some forays into Europe.
That's a great run.
Yeah, it was a great run. The truth of it is people ask both two things, like how did Circus Contraption come together? Why did you start it? And then why did it end? Right? Really, it was I was in Phineas Gage, and at the time, my partner in crime and in romance was Laura Paxton, who's a gifted aerialist and art creator, and she had come from a background of dance. And was taking what at the time was on vogue, which was a ground-based trapeze, where the trapeze was low enough you could still walk, so you could it was more dancey style. And we were looking for something to work on together, and we thought, literally, it was like, why not a circus? I mean, that's how much grounding we had in it. And so we said, yep, let's do that. And we made it up as we went along, and we ended up getting with a number of other extremely talented individuals.
Obscenely talented. I've seen multiple shows, and wow, what a crew.
And we evolved who and what we were as we went along. And we were right at the time when that was part of what was, we didn't even know this, part of this new circus movement. Cirque du Soleil had been out, they were a thing, but this smaller model, this European, one ring model was really, we found out later, there was Bindlestiff in New York and Five Fingers in Texas.
Yard Dogs.
Yeah. And we're all doing these things, and then we kind of gravitated and went, oh, you're doing that too? And it was just kind of the zeitgeist of what was happening with the new circus movement. And so we unwittingly became a part of, I guess it always sounds so conflated to say, but I guess the truth of it is we did become part of American circus historical culture.
Circus
No, there's no
serendipity.
question. There's no question that I've done the research, man. This is my thing. Circus Contraption is one of the highlights of that history. And I don't know where it's gone since then. I know that burlesque, small scale burlesque was co-emergent with that tradition, with that underground circus tradition, and that has taken on a life of its own and is quite popular now all over America.
And I know that, using Seattle as a model, but also as I travel around, I see how not only the new circus movement, but Circus Contraption is seeded out into the world. I travel about 4 to 5 months a year around the world, and there's never a time when I travel somewhere where a performer is not either using a Circus Contraption song, asking me if they can use the Circus Contraption song, or was influenced in some way by Circus Contraption, which is really kind of a wonderful and validating thing for kind of when you're a part of an underground movement.
I think about there's an excellent documentary of the Ramones called End of the Century, and there's this bit where they show a map of the United States, and there's kind of traveling from place to place because they were touring a lot when they first started, and then they show all the bands that start popping up in those places, kind of same phenomena.
Right.
Yeah. Grassroots creates a thing.
Indeed. And so then in 2009, I think it was, we did our last show, the show to end all shows. We went out with an apocalyptic bang, and that was our run.
And then they also did a show.
Hey. But in a strange twist of fate and timing for this podcast anyway, the Circus Contraption Band just played last Tuesday night at the Showbox with Devotchka.
Shut the front door. That's awesome.
True story. It just sort of fell together. As when we stopped doing Circus Contraption, everyone continued to create. In their own ways. Some of the music players went and formed a number of other bands. People were doing their respective skills out in the world, and then it just so happened that the timing was right, and a friend of ours who owns a great club in town called the Can asked us if we would consider getting together for a one-off for this show for Valentine's Day, and people said, yeah, why not? And so we hit again after 6 years, which was fun.
Yeah, how was the energy and the interplay with you guys, and is it all well, I don't want to go too deep, is there any bad blood, but was it a good show?
Yeah, there wasn't any bad blood. There wasn't a great impetus because everyone was so busy with other projects to necessarily think about getting back together.
Right.
Man, the band's back together. But when we rehearsed, it was a lot of laughter and just kind of like, oh my God, I remember that. Where players were realizing that a lot of the songs they had in their muscle memory just because they were so embedded after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of gigs. So it was fun.
Yeah, that's great. Congratulations.
It was also a touchstone for me going back and doing it, a touchstone for where I'd been and where I am now. And realizing that what distance had been covered there.
So let's talk about that. Where are you now? Obviously, we've talked about the show that's running currently,
right.
But what fills a day for David, and what's the future look like?
So when Circus Contraption ended, we kind of, for about a year, knew the writing was on the wall. We could tell that people were starting to, feel like it was time to create in other ways or move on in other parts of their lives. By then, I'd been already asked to being basically an itinerant MC for festivals, events, circus shows, variety shows, burlesque shows, etc. And so when Circus Contraption ended, I left 5 days later for London for gigging. So for me, the last 6 or 7 years has been kind of dividing my time between performing as an MC for a variety of things in North America and Western Europe, a little bit in Eastern Europe, functioning as an educator, consulting, as well as running an event production company, and then directing. I did some directing in the interim. In that period of time, I directed an off-Broadway show with the Handsome Little Devils, based out of Denver. I've been down. Michael has been gracious enough to have me down to University of Santa Cruz to teach a workshop on generative performance for primarily theater actors who are not used to creating their own work. And the most recent thing is I've been working with two great partners for about the last year, Jeff Wilson and Al Parisi. And Jeff, as the investor, we've just purchased a 160-foot Washington State ferry we're going to be turning into a floating entertainment venue.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's beyond cool.
Yeah.
I just got a little like happy bit moment.
Yeah. So that'll be the next adventure. And so my traveling will probably start to curtail a bit because there'll be so much focus on this venue. But I'm also at the point where it really is valuable to me to be embedding myself more in my local culture. And Storyville Rising has been the most ambitious project for me personally since Circus Contraption. And I see that being more of the future of where I head, where I'm hybridizing circus, cabaret with theater in an immersive setting. It kind of hits on all my cylinders.
That's great. Now, it sounds like your career has done what careers often do if you do them long enough, which is it's evolved over time through experience and whatnot. But I'm fascinated. I was telling you guys earlier, I had a friend on the show who has not been posted yet, who's an artist. And we got into that topic of making art and making a living out of that, which, I know in my life, I've certainly known more people in the tech industry or, Swing and Hammer or whatever than folks that have actually turned performance and creativity into a life. And it's a trite question, but do you have advice or thoughts for people that are thinking about the fact that performance could be what they'd want to do full time, full stop?
Right. It's a tricky question because I don't think that there's a panaceum or a nostrum that will, the pearls of wisdom in your career will suddenly be successful and you'll make your living at it. But I can say that for me, what was important was, one, to get at a high level of my craft, and two, to diversify and to hustle. At making your living as a performer or something in the creative arts, it's so difficult for so many people. And I feel blessed that I had a niche that very few people can fill when it came to hosting in that way. And I was able to use that momentum to build. And so I would say that is to look for the unexpected, look for the places where you have a skill set that is underrepresented in the world. And it may be different than you think on the outset. I came from a theater background. And if you would have told me, now 20 years ago, you would be part of a seminal new circus movement, I would have said, shut the front door, because it wouldn't have been on my radar. But then suddenly there it is. And here I am 20 years later, existing, being able to raise a child with my partner and do it from performing. And, I'm not having a day job by and large. So it's interesting and I feel blessed.
Yeah. Congratulations. And you're doing good work. So that's appreciated as well.
Yeah. I think there's an old proverb that says every man, or everyone, really, I should update it. Everyone should. There's an old proverb that says everyone must eat a peck of dirt ere he die. And a peck is about 2 gallons. I figured it out. So that's a lot of dirt that you have to eat. And I think that every choice that you make in life, this has been my experience, has its own flavor of dirt that you have to eat along with it. And so, for instance, when you're coming out of school, I tell my students this, they're coming out of school with an arts degree. what are you going to do with that degree? And there's really three things they could do. They could go and work for a corporation, and be an industrial artist, or they can go freelance like David did, and just, take catch as catch can, or they can become an academic like I did. And each one of those choices has its rewards, and each one of those choices has its dirt that you have to eat. And I guess they're different flavors. So in my case, I don't know that I would have had the resilience to deal with the level of uncertainty that following your bliss and becoming a full-time performance artist requires. And on the other hand, I think I can put up with a lot of the crap that academics have to put up with very well, right?
And to be fair, you also get to play in that space some too. You're here for a show.
No, that is absolutely true. I am living my dream. I wake up every morning and I say, oh, I cannot wait to go to work. That's who I am, and I love it. And I get to work with people like David and all the other crazy people in my life, lots and lots of crazy people, including you, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. And it is a joyful life. And I had to pay a price for that. And I think that everybody does, but to me, that price was worth it.
Everything's a feature set trade-off in that regard. It's funny when you were saying the thing about the peck, I was thinking when you said it that if you don't eat dirt, then your work has no grit.
I cannot think of a better way to end this interview.
No, that hurts. That's actually painful. I'm dying inside a little.
Are you a little uncomfortable?
I'm a little uncomfortable.
I think we could end a little uncomfortable. I want to thank both you guys for coming in. This was a lot of fun. And
David and Michael ending uncomfortably since 2004.
Since 2004.
As is the style of their friendship and professional working relationship.
I feel like I'm not holding up my end of this conversation unless I say shut the front door as well.
There we go. We've done that.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Done.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks, guys. Well, there you have it, friends. The end of another episode of Boom Knowledge. If you enjoyed today's show, I would love it if you subscribed. In addition to interviews like the one you just heard with Mike and David, I also do well-researched, at least mildly entertaining, and undoubtedly informative segments on topics like robots, art forgery, twins, how audio works in your brain, relative motion, why sharks like heavy metal, and, well, that just begins to scratch the surface. Simply search for Boom Knowledge in iTunes or your favorite iDevice and hit the subscribe button. You can also find subscribe links and show notes and all kinds of other good things on my website at www.boomknow.com. That's BoomKnow. Apple not your thing? You can find me on Stitcher. You can find RSS links on my website. You can listen directly from my website. But what you can't do is stop this signal. No way. I want to give one more big thanks to David for not only giving me permission to use Circus Contraption music on this show, but even suggesting it. I loved that. Thank you, sir. So good. Have a great rest of your week. Stay smart and groovy, friends. I will see you in the future.
Boom Knowledge.